Hi, I'm BJ, and this is the Arcane Alienist Podcast. All right, we are in the fifth and final week of RPG a Day, and I'm going to answer the prompts. But first, I've got a call from Carl Rodriguez of the GMologist Presents, who is the person, I think I failed to mention, he's the person who runs the Hyperborea game that I talked a lot about in the last episode. So let's hear what Carl has to say.
Hey BJ, that Hyperborea game sounds really cool. Of course, I'm biased because, well, I'm running it, but I love the summary, and I feel like it was good. It's good to hear your summary from your player's perspective, because I put down a summary in my recent podcast as well, in the Geomologist Presents, and I'm really liking how you and the other player work well together, really gel. It's unfortunate that the first two characters uh, bit it, becoming partially food for ghouls, but also the lead ghoul or ghast or whatever, making more of its kind to take over the underworld. I guess, I don't know, who knows, but that ghoul is dead now. So yeah, I'm enjoying your new characters, and like I said in my podcast, I think that four-way fight was one of the best combat sessions I've ever seen or been a part of. It worked really well. I'm amazed that pulled it off the way we did, and I think that's kudos to you and the other player for knowing the rules and being a little patient as the other groups went. But of course, it kind of started flowing really well when there was less groups and less pawns on the table, which I thought was really cool. And I love the fact that while you didn't tell this, I will say you critted every single leader of the other faction. So you critted the hometown favorite guys. I guess they're called the Indigo blah something like that. I don't remember what they're called. Anyway, it doesn't matter because they're dead. Then you defeated the Hyperborean archers, the leader who was probably a warlock of some sort, and then you took down the were crocodile. And I guess if you had some silver, you could have finished him off. I bet your partner and brother Mora Rex, the Pict, is a little pissed off. But I will say that this shows me, and I hope it shows to you, and it's really awesome that you shared a lot of Brunkel and Hyperborea for your RPG day a week thing. It's gonna be hard for me. I think I only have like two characters, and one hasn't even started yet, so I'm gonna have to focus on one character that I actually play, since I mostly run. But yeah, I think it's great to focus on Hyperborea. I really like a lot of aspects of it, and it really shows that you can take a lot of different things from many different ideas and put them into this game. And the way that Jeff Talanian has created the world and the verse, it makes it very evocative to me that I can throw different things together from the different genres and stories I like: Lovecraft, Howard, Ashton Smith, and throw them at you guys and see how you go. And so far, so good. Well, party number 2 at least.
Thank you, Carl. Thanks for filling in some of the details from that big arena combat that we went through. That was a very fun battle, and I agree. It was great. You had 4 factions, and our faction had an alliance with the other faction that might have, was he going to turn on us before the end? The idea was that only one group could win. So even though we were working together, when we were the last people standing, what would have happened? I guess maybe we'll never know. But I hope that I hope our other player isn't too mad at me. For details, what had happened was we had taken out the hometown favorites who were all mounted, and then turned our attention to this group of Hyperborean warriors who were archers, except their leader was an archer as well, but she was some kind of warlock. And we after we had sort of taken out, I'd been using a bow, and the other player who's playing a berserker was using a melee weapon. But after we took out that group, we turned our attention on the archers, and since we had killed these mounted warriors, I or at least their leader. I snatched his horse and got on his horse and switched to a scimitar, and basically rode down the leader of the other of the Hyperborean group. And then as we were kind of mopping up, there was one of them left, and the berserker, my sword brother, my character's sword brother, had in his rage kind of turned on the druid were crocodile guy and his group. And so I was trying to ride by and grab the remaining archer and pull her on my horse and say, so I could say, it's over for you guys, but join us because our allies just turned on us. But I failed in my attempt to do that, and screwing around trying to get that done resulted in my ally, my sword brother. I keep drawing a blank on his name, even though Carl just said it. Anyway, he dropped into it was bleeding out, and so I had to finish off the were crocodile myself, and then go tend to his wounds and try to save him. And so I hope the player isn't too upset with me, and I hope that in game that my buddy's character's buddy is not too mad at him either for what happened. It was a tactical error on my part, not an indifference. But yeah, that was a really fun fight. So I'm looking forward to continuing to play Hyperborea with our new characters. So thanks again for the call, Carl, and I will talk to you later. Okay, so what are the prompts for this week? We got a short week because we're at the end of the month. For Sunday the 28th, roll 1d8 plus 1 and tag that many people in, tag many friends with your favorite RPG cover art. So what I'm going to do in lieu of tagging people, since this is a podcast, is I'm just going to make today's episode, the cover art for today's episode, something I really like, and that is the original cover. It's not to an RPG book per se, but it is the cover to the original cover by Larry Elmore to the Dragons of Autumn Twilight, which was the first Dragonlance novel, the first Dragonlance, first in the Chronicles trilogy, which was the first trilogy in the Dragonlance, which so that makes it the first Dragonlance novel, period. I really liked Elmore's art. I actually wanted to, and I've tried to find something that would fit on the cover art that would have his original covers for all three of those books, because it's hard to pick a favorite among them. But that was the first D&D related novel I ever read, was Dragons of Autumn Twilight, and it just sort of sucked me into seeing more of a narrative of a world that operated on D&D rules and conventions and tropes and things like that, more than just generic fantasy, that it was D&D specific fantasy. And so I had not been playing the game for very long when I came across that novel, and I think my mom got it for me. It was probably the thickest novel I had read at that point, thinking that it would it would last me a couple weeks, and I think it lasted me like 3 days, and then we had to go back to the bookstore and just get the other two, and I just absorbed those novels, and then the second trilogy, the Legends trilogy, pretty quickly after that. So yeah, that was my introduction into reading D&D related novels. So it's not the cover of a rule book, but man, Larry Elmore's art is so ubiquitous with D&D in the 80s, with his Dragonlance art, and continuing on into he was one of the house artists, and I think he's one of my favorite D&D artists. I think he's got a style that's very D&D. It's very fantasy. It's sometimes not always I was going to say accurate, much like D&D. You're trying to, it's sort of a medieval pastiche on a fantasy world. So he's got some unique ways of the way he draws armor and weapons and things like that maybe don't reflect how those would look realistically in the real world all the time. But it is a very distinct, engaging style, and to me, it's never what I like about Elmore's art compared to sort of the way things are drawn now. Elmore's art is very not nothing is overly ornate unless it's meant to be something ornate and flashy and gaudy. He doesn't just overdo. When he does do intricacy on the hilt of a sword or scrolling on armor, it's very finely done and very, very sometimes understated, like you would expect to see that. We would do that. The stuff that people wear still looks functional, and his peasants, when I say peasants, or whenever he depicts adventurers not in their armor and geared up, they look like they're just wearing, plain medieval, homespun medieval clothing. I just like his. There's a certain realism to it. I just like Larry Elmore's art. I'm kind of rambling on that, but that's again another favorite of mine is that I almost put on there was the cover to, and this may be the only cover he did for Ari Salvatore, was for the original, the Crystal Shard, where it shows Dris Dord and kind of you can see 10 Towns in the background. He's out on the tundra and he's sort of crouched down looking at some blood trail, and Bruenor Battlehammer and Wolfgar are standing kind of behind him as he's picking up the trail of something. So I really like that one too. That was probably another novel that I absorbed really quickly. So yeah, it turns out maybe some of the cover art for a lot of the novels related to D&D or maybe things I like better than I don't know if I like them better than the cover to the books. It was also kind of hard to pick a single D&D book. And D&D isn't the only role-playing game I play, but it's definitely got the best history of cover. The Traveler books are kind of plain black covers. They don't have much imagery on them. So it's really the D&D books that are things in my collection, and the game that I've played a lot where I enjoy the cover art the most. Anyway, that's it for that prompt. What else have we got here? Who would you like to see take part in RPG a Day? Well, it would be really cool, and I don't know how we would do this. It would be really cool if some of the some of the better known people. I mentioned Joe Manganiello a couple episodes back when we were talking about celebrity DMs, but it would be really cool to get some of those people who are well known, kind of in the public eye for D&D right now. They're not huge celebrities, but they are the people that if there is somebody who's well known, everybody who plays D&D has heard about this person, or most people who play D&D has heard about this person. Whether it's celebrities who play D&D or some of the people who show up oftentimes running streaming games for either as part of Wizards of the Coast public option, or just people who become popular on YouTube, like even people who aren't associated with Wizards of the Coast, like Dan Masters, who does the Dungeon Craft YouTube channel, or Hanker and Furnell, Runehammer, see him do that on some of his stuff. That would be really cool to see some people at that level also hear what they have, how they would respond to some of these prompts. So I don't know, Anthony, if you're listening, if you have any connections with those guys, because I certainly don't. But well, I'm a Patreon of Dungeon Craft and of WebDM. Maybe I can drop them a note and say, hey, you guys should do this next year. But yeah, those are the kind. I think that would be neat to hear from the people who are actually producing more professional content. It's always great to hear from us amateurs, I know, and we have a good community here on Anchor. But trying to bring more people into the conversation, that would be interesting. The next one for the 30th of August is, what should RPG a Day do for its 10th anniversary next year? Oh, wow. I don't know. I mean, this is just my second year participating, so I don't know if I'd have any suggestions. Maybe we should all agree on the Anchor sphere that try to keep our comments brief. We all get behind on listening to each other's podcasts in August because the sheer volume of output is just increased anyway. But maybe we should even when we do one episode a day, maybe we should limit ourselves to 5 to 10 minutes on the prompts instead of a 40-minute episode on one prompt out of 7 for the week. I don't know. Brevity, maybe that's what I'd like to see for RPG a Day from podcasters. I'm kidding. I hope I haven't offended any of my fellow podcasters out there. I'm just joking around. Something I'd like to see maybe we could do this on Cerebrivore. I don't want those of us who participate in Cerebrivore to forego our own individual stuff on our own podcasts. But it would be neat also to, I don't know if we could do Cerebrivore daily unless we recorded it, 2 weeks worth of it and then broke them up into really short chunks and just put them out, very, very mini podcasts every day. But it might be fun to do at least the Sunday, since the Sunday stuff seems to be a little more in depth typically. Maybe to just at least record those, or maybe get together and record our responses. I don't know, we could do the whole week's prompts, or if we could just, the big one that would be on Sunday for that week, and have a panel discussion about that in a little more in depth. And then use that platform to encourage everybody else to participate with the other daily stuff on individual podcasts, either our podcast or the other people in the podcast, other podcasters who listen to us to call in, and on our shows, but also to remind them to do their own RPG a day stuff. And when did you first take part in RPG a day? That's an easy question. That was last year. I didn't even know it was a thing until these podcasts started showing up, and I was like, oh, so I wound up having to do a few episodes to get caught up here and there throughout the month of August because I get behind. So yeah, last year was my first RPG a day. And so there's an optional anecdotal alternative that you can just use to tag friends and tell them a gaming story. I won't. Again, I'm not going to tag people on the podcast. But here's a fun gaming story because this just happened yesterday. My son has been playing in my 5e Temple of Elemental Evil game. He kind of joined it late. He's just really started getting to where he wants to play D&D regularly, and has asked to play and get to play with. He's old enough now. I think he can. We run kind of a PG-13 game, me and my friends. So he's old enough now to sit in. But he took out the big bad guy for the particular phase of the adventure they're in with a crit. They had been fighting this guy's minions and it was a pretty brutal fight. It was not looking good. They finally kind of turned the tide against all these heavily armed soldiers and mercenaries. And the evil cleric strolls around the corner and who disturbs my meditation? And I thought, surely I'm going to drop a couple of people into death saves here, nope. His halfling cleric decided to cast Guiding Bolt, and against all odds, he rolled a crit and just took him out in one shot. And it was a little bit anticlimactic, but I say that, but then everybody was laughing and cheering and clapping for him, and that was a great experience to have when and he doesn't have any special powers that do me special favors because he's my kid. He just chose the right moment to use one of his best spells because they were just like second level characters right now, and it was just great. It's the thing you live for and the thing you want to see people when they're new to the hobby enjoy. And I had never told him this story, which is funny because again it's 5th edition, but he's playing a halfling cleric. It was a character he came up with all on his own. And so when we started the session, I was like, hey, because one of the guys that plays with us was way back when we first started playing 5th edition as part of that original group I started with. I said, hey, you remember my first character when I first played, not ran, but played, somebody else ran some sessions for us, was a halfling cleric. And I was like, yeah. He was like, yeah, I remember that. But what I hadn't told my son was in that first short campaign we ran, I did the same thing with the same spell. I took out the bad guy that was supposed to be a big threat to us when we were about 2nd or 3rd level. So I guess the son becomes the father, I guess. But anyway, that's a good anecdotal story that just happened to happen yesterday before I started recording this. So anyway, that's it for RPG a Day month in 2022. So I appreciate everybody for listening. I want to thank Carl again for his calls. Special shout out to Anthony Boyd of Casting Shadows podcast, also known as Runeslinger, who is one of the architects behind RPG a Day. He's called in a few times, and I'm sure we'll be hearing from him from time to time in future episodes. Everybody, thanks for listening. Wherever you are out there, I hope you're doing well. Take care of yourself, and I'll be back later. Thanks for listening to the Arcane Alienist podcast. The music you're hearing is Come and Get It by Scott Holmes Music. The cover art I use for the episodes is by Dave Bone. Be sure and check out his website, ironseer.com, for a lot of other great gaming-related content. You can always leave me a voice message through the Anchor app or at the Anchor website, or you can email me at arcane.alienist@gmail.com. Once again, I appreciate you listening. Thanks so much.